This week's episode is in partnership with Intact Insurance, here for you and for everything you care about.
Oh, it's so good to hear that music. And that means that we are back. You are listening to the Jann Arden Podcast. I'm here with Caitlin Green and Adam Karsh, our engineer and fact checker. And it's taken us about 20 minutes to actually start this conversation because we've been talking about food. So we're just going to go with it. Caitlin started off by saying, have you seen Adele? She's like, go look on your Instagram. So I, of course, went right to my Instagram, looked at Adele. And she, to me, is like unrecognizable. I bet she's lost 120 pounds.
She looks fabulous, and she's been on this, I think, weight loss journey for a little while. I saw a photo of her that was shared when she was at Drake's birthday party in the fall, and she looked like she had already been working out more, probably changing her eating habits. And then she drops this photo this week, and she had started trending pretty well around the world for 2 days because nobody recognized her, and also because everyone's happy for her. She looks like she's very happy. She looks super healthy. She looks great. However, there was a collective, not when we've all been gaining 15 pounds in lockdown, eating chips and not going to the gym anymore and all the rest of it. So it sparked a lot of really funny conversations.
Well, there's the whole thing, calling it the quarantine 15. But I think there's not a person, certainly in this country, or probably anywhere in Europe, that hasn't leaned heavily on food, on alcohol, probably smoking a little bit of weed, because these have been anxious times. And when you're in your house, it's almost like it's not like vacation, but when you go on vacation and you eat breakfast and you're already planning lunch and dinner.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like when I go to bed at night, you guys, I am, just as I'm nodding off, I'm going, oh, good, I can eat. I'm thinking about what I can eat, but in my own defense, I've worked out every day except for 2 in the last 2 months. So I haven't gained an ounce. And
that's the part of the equation I'm missing out on. Is I'm not working out anymore. The gym in my building is closed. I've done some really long walks, but I haven't been doing the mat routines and stuff that I probably would have needed to do.
I have a gym in the house. Not a gym, but that's being very extravagant. But I have an old elliptical here, and I have a treadmill, and it has made it easy. So I feel very fortunate. But most people do have a piece of equipment in their house.
Yeah,
more and more. That the laundry has been on for 10 years.
Yeah. Now they have to actually use it.
Okay, Adam, you've been talking about making gourmet meals. You've never made risotto in your life. And you made a risotto that took you an hour of constant stirring. But that's the whole point. I mean, people really are cooking. And I'm hoping that these are the types of things that now remain as part of our day-to-day lives going forward.
Yeah, I think the question has been we're of course very, very eager to get back to quote unquote normal life. But what might some of the positive things that have happened during lockdown be that we can take with us moving forward? Certainly, I've heard no shortage of people say that they really want to go back to enjoying an actual lunch hour. Again, back to food because we can't stay away from it. But
let's just stay on food for this segment, right? Let's just stay
forever. But they eat at their desk, or they grab a quick something on the way to another meeting, that go, rush. And now they're saying, I actually stop what I'm doing. I make food at home at lunch. I eat it. I maybe watch a little bit of TV, read some news, whatever the case is. And they want to keep doing that when they go back to work. They don't want to have nothing but lunch meetings and being on the go all the time.
Well, it's the way we were all living our lives. And I have had a real wake up call too of, how much I've worked and how much I'm on the road and on the go, and that I don't say no enough because I just feel like, I'll miss out if I don't do that, and I should do that. And now I realize I've really enjoyed being at home and doing things here, but I sure miss my friends. I sure miss being around people. I sure miss the interaction of my work life. My work has everything to do with collaboration and being around people, as does yours,
Yeah.
Caitlin. You know, you're in the studio with people in a radio station and talking and laughing and that camaraderie. And I have to be honest, I've been really down a few days. Like I've just felt really blue, not anxious, but really depressed and down and not motivated. Like I'll get on the elliptical and I'll kind of go through the motions. I don't have a great appetite, which always surprises me because the gauntlet, the pendulum does swing the other way where I'm just like, I don't want to eat anything. And Mitty's looking at me, thank God for her. She's like, can we go walk now? So, and I get that fresh air for 15 minutes, you guys, and I'm not kidding you. I feel resurrected after I've walked that dog for half an hour.
Yeah.
So
and it's,
yeah.
I mean, we're on week 8 and I think like there was it was stressful and anxious, but there was also early days, the novelty of like, just cooking at home, staying at home, being at home, that kind of wears off. And now we get a little bit like, it's like you said, you're almost just tired. I feel more tired. I certainly feel a little more exhausted than I used to. And I don't know if you guys have checked out the new stand-up special that was just released this week from Jerry Seinfeld.
I'm going to. I've saved it for like tonight, like a Saturday night, right?
Yeah.
So I'm so looking forward to it. Was it funny?
It's very, very funny. Now he's become a bit of a screamer in his old age, so he does yell a lot more, but it's great. And the observations, he obviously recorded this before lockdown, and he talks a lot about going out versus staying in and how we're social creatures and we kind of live our whole life, going out, we got to go out, we got to get out. And then you want to come home again and the joy of then coming home. And this always like when you go away on vacation, you race to the airport, then you race to the hotel, then you got to eat, you make plans to go out and eat every day when you're on holiday, then you got to come back home. It's very interesting to look at it from the perspective of being in lockdown right now. He didn't mean for it to be perfect timing, but it just is.
Well, I just, on a couple of days ago, my 2 friends came out that I hadn't seen for 7 weeks. We were very far apart, but it's one of my childhood friends, Teresa, that she came out with her husband and they were measuring these garden boxes. I'm going to have my potatoes in boxes this year. Ooh. And it was all I could do not to cry. When they came in the driveway, like it's all I can do not to cry right now. They came in the driveway and they stepped out of the truck and it was this weird feeling. I'm like, how could this have happened in such a short period of time? I felt really overwhelmed. I felt weird. I felt a little bit uneasy, as did they. We're kind of like, hi. And I just felt like crying. And then we were all so happy and everybody had an ice water and was like far apart. I have a pretty big deck, but we were 10, 15 feet apart. But even to watch my friend rototilling my little thing just to prep it for these boxes, I just had my thumbs jammed into my pant pockets. And I thought, wow, I just did not realize. I will never take this for granted again. I will never, ever in my life take for granted human interaction, the friendships that I've curated. I say curated because it's the perfect word. Friends that I've worked on, that I've chosen, that I've spent the time to, especially at 58 years old, I really have curated friendships. And we all know that, the people that are important to me and that have been helpers and have supported, the people who have supported each other have risen to the top. And I see who those people are very clearly now.
And I swear to God, Jerry Seinfeld's not paying me to say this, but he talks about friends too in his special. And I thought he said, your friends are kind of the family you pick. It's like, you can't pick your family, so you pick your friends. And it's so true. And when you do finally get to see people, even though I'm seeing them at a distance right now, if at all, like a front porch hangout for a little bit or hanging out in the backyard, I'm so excited to see, my people.
Yes.
It's a real thrill. And look, we are still going to be doing the Instagram lives, and we're still going to be doing Zooms and stuff moving forward. I think it's going to make day-to-day life a lot easier. It's going to take some of the stuff that was overwhelming us off of our plate. Like even just us doing the podcast this way is going to be able to save time and make everyone more versatile, but it doesn't replace the in-person stuff. It's gotten us through. It's been this nice little bridge, but it's not the same. I still just miss being around people. We're social creatures. We just miss each other.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you're right, Caitlin. There's going to be things that are going to be part of the fabric of our lives now. But I think, even, talking about Zoom, so many people have these location weddings. That's kind of gone the way of the buffalo temporarily. But, for a lot of people that couldn't afford to go to Jamaica or whatever, now it's kind of cool that maybe they could have a Zoom with 12 relatives that aren't going to be there. It's not something that people readily thought about before. I'm sure you would FaceTime your friends and do iChat and things like that. But I think there'll be more of an interaction. We've taken such a step forward into artificial intelligence in this last 8 weeks. We've seen what it can do, how it can change our lives. I mean, it's really going to be interesting to see what we do with it. Anyway, you're listening to the Jann Arden Podcast. Every time we go to a break, something always comes up that I want to talk about. And Caitlin brought up the fact that in Ontario right now, people that have cottages, and that's a big thing in Ontario, Muskoka, is that what it's called?
Muskoka, and you got the Kawarthas, and there's tons of places.
So within this 4-hour radius of Ontario is gorgeous lake country, of Toronto. I can't speak English. And people have been asked to not go to their cottages. And I'm going to let Caitlin pick the story up from there, because it's kind of crappy.
Yeah, it is kind of crappy. And I think initially how this started is we're building our data in real time on what's going on and how risky COVID is to different communities. We learned early on that if the higher number of, people who live in an urban area like Toronto continually go to and from their cottages during the pandemic, during lockdown, the small town mayors in these cottage countries were worried that there would be a greater risk of them bringing the virus to these small towns.
And rightly so.
Like
they don't have the resources. They don't have the hospitals, the resources. But now, 2 months later, it's been, we now know how effective social distancing can be and physical distancing can be in preventing the spread of the virus. Things like just not going into stores that often, staying home, staying in your backyard, staying on your property, staying apart from people. And so I understandably get it. And here in Canada, when it's horrible winter out all of this, most of the year, when summer hits, you want to go to the cottage. May 2-4 is coming up and people say, I want to be able to bring my own groceries, bring my own supplies, not put the communities at risk in cottage country, but I want to be able to go. I pay property taxes on my property. I want to be able to use it. I want to be able to go there, but just not put others at risk. There's such a debate now between the people who own cottages and the people who live in these small towns between should they be able to come up. I have friends of cottages who said, and they're not even there, but they're just being warned by people who've gone up to say that locals are driving around and looking in driveways to see if cars from the city are coming up and using their cottage because they're finger wagging at them. And there's all these Facebook groups where there's public shaming happening, and it's very, it can be quite heated. Could that not be a bit of hearsay?
Well,
like that, just of people driving around and looking for cars. Like, are these like made up weird stories? Like, I don't know if that's true. Further to that, go ahead.
Well, a friend of mine had her sister-in-law use their family cottage. She went up there. They had a couple things to take care of, that issues with the cottage. So she goes by herself. She's not going into town, but the small town she was in, she saw on Facebook groups that they were saying, oh, well, we know of people on this road, the road that she's on, who have come in from the city. Oh, and she's like, was this me? She had no idea. People who made the mistake of going into a post office and, fair enough, maybe they shouldn't have gone in. But when they realized that they weren't from town, it was not well received.
Well, listen, everyone needs to be kind. They need to be calm. We do know the rules of the road. They've been absolutely pounded. The messaging has been very clear about, like you said, social distancing. And we really have done a wonderful job in Canada. I can't say enough about how we have come together, federally and provincially, to keep the numbers down. We've not really seen what other countries, the hell that they have gone through. Italy, Spain, New York State. But further that, if you go to your cottage, and I think people should I'm going to stick my neck out and say people should absolutely be able to go to their cottages. And you hit it on the break, Caitlin. You said bring your own groceries.
Yeah.
Listen, if you're going to go up for a couple of weeks, surely to God, you can go to your regular grocery store where you normally go, where people know you and see you, where there's the 6-foot tape on the bloody floor. Get your stuff, load your car up, and give yourself time so that in case you do need something, whether it's a bottle of wine, and plus you're supporting these small businesses. Like, it's such a catch-22, right?
I know, right? That's the other thing.
These shop owners should have signs on their doors that say, you cannot come into the store without a mask and gloves. Simple as that. We don't allow it. We're a small community. Surely to God, we can all work together on things like that. People deserve to go use and it only makes sense. They're little cottages away from everybody.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to spend their time wandering the aisles of a convenience store. Sorry. I don't see how that's going to be a problem, knowing what we know now.
Yeah, I would hope, and I get, like, in the beginning the concern because it was so unknown, but you'd hope that people aren't driving up and coughing all over a food land in a town of 200 people. But it's also, like, when we talk about, we've been hearing more and more about this, but the pressure on everyone's mental health and their happiness from staying inside and not going outside. What could be better, especially if you have kids and you're living in a big city and they're not able to get outside that much? What could be better than isolating and, send them outside to the yard, go swimming in the lake, run around a bit at the cottage, burn some energy off. It's a nice break for parents. Honestly, I don't have a cottage, but if I did own one, I'd certainly want to be able to safely figure out a way to go. Well,
like I said, people need to be kind to each other. We are all, there's no map for this. We don't know how to navigate this with complete confidence. We're all kind of just feeling our way through the dark. But the things that we do know are that when we have proper distance apart from each other physically, it lowers our chances immeasurably. It's pretty almost impossible to get. When we're not touching surfaces, when we're not touching our own faces, things like that. And we're coming over the mountain now. Everyone's been talking about May, June. We're coming over the other side of the mountain. So just be kind to people. My God, if you do live in a small town anywhere, and I'm not just talking about Ontario, if you're in BC or Alberta, every province has their version of cottage country. We all do. I have a friend of mine, Jeremy. I'll say his first name. I won't say his last name. They've been splitting their time between their Toronto condo and a little cottage they have, like, north of the city. And further to that, his mother-in-law, the weeks that they're not there, she goes. So they go in for a week, they leave, they clean like friggin' crazy, wipe everything down. She's in a little apartment in some town. She goes every second week. So they've been sharing this space. And Jeremy's like, it has completely saved us. It's saved their kids. They've got internet up in there. And he didn't mention anything about having any weird stuff with the townsfolk. The townsfolk, they're not there with pitchforks and torches or anything. Anyway, I don't know what happened, but our show disappeared. And with you, anyways, Caitlin, because now I'm gonna have Elaine Lui come and show up. So don't go away. You're listening to the Jann Arden Podcast. Elaine Lui is up next. You know her as Lainey Gossip, one of the co-hosts of The Social. Don't go away. Hi, you're listening to the Jann Arden Podcast. I am here in Springbank, Alberta. And my guest, Lainey Gossip, is in her home in somewhere in Toronto. I'm not going to give you her address because you'll just show up and bug her. Adam, our engineer, is still in his basement. And welcome to our podcast in these very strange times. Thanks for doing this, Lainey.
I never turn down an opportunity to talk to you. How are you?
I'm excellent. Lainey Lui, I'm not going to go into like this long diatribe of all the things that she does, but Lainey Gossip, the blog that she does, all the amazing writing that she does on that site, you have to go check that out. And we will definitely have that on the webpage, so you guys can just go there and click onto something and see it. Also, I don't even have to say this, but I'm going to anyway, one of the co-hosts of the very, very successful The Social. And you guys are still doing The Social from your homes, and it's now on the actual network. For a while, you guys were just airing it on sort of YouTube and social media. But now you guys are back doing it on TV every day. This has got to be grueling. It's a technical nightmare, really.
You know, the technical nightmare is for our tech people who are so patient and so talented, but who are having to be more creative and more efficient every day. And, you know, to be honest, like for us, we show up, we have our devices and our screens, and yes, our homes have become home studios, but I wish that I could help them, like the tech people, and figure out when the line isn't clear or when someone's lost connection. Because in some ways you almost feel helpless when you're sitting there and someone's face is frozen and the sound goes out. I feel for them. I really do. Because I know, like, I've been there on the other side, and they must be like, oh, like how is, there's nothing more infuriating than tech. There's nothing more infuriating than like a tech snafu. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We've become our own cameramen and our own sound men and all these things. It's really funny. Amazon is completely sold out of a lot of microphones. They're completely sold out of those ring lights. And for folks that don't know what a ring light is, all you have to do is look into a person's eyeball. And if you see this round circle of like fluorescent lighting, it is the light that just kind of gives you, well, you have nostrils basically and eyeballs. Everything else is washed out.
Yeah.
So people have really taken to that. Remember the old argument about, oh, you can't work from home. Look what's happened to people working from home. Everybody's working from home.
I know. And I feel like what an irony of ironies, in the sense of, I think before COVID-19, if you had said, oh, you're going to get to work from home every day for weeks on end, people would have been like, oh yeah, that's so great, because it sounded like a certain kind of utopia. And now that we are having by necessity to work from home, it's not that fun. I miss the workplace. I miss the energy of the studio. I miss my colleagues. I want to be able to see them. I want to be able to share space with them. So isn't it funny how things turn out that way, that you say something and when the reality actually hits, you're like, well, it's not that great, actually.
You don't know what you've got till it's gone. I think the things that we are really being made acutely aware of is that personal closeness, even bumping into somebody in a grocery store, which is so unheard of at this point. But there's a little ritual that the girls do backstage at The Social before you go on stage. And a gentleman named Kwame, he just checks the girls, makes sure everyone's got no lipstick on their teeth. But there's something he does just for luck. And it's kind of like just a little patty cake. It's almost like a child game. And the girls also do something where, you guys hold hands and I'm not going to say it because it would wreck it, but you do something where you look at each other and just make sure you say a little something. And even those physical things that you guys do, I think about that now. And I was talking to your colleague Cynthia about it. I'm like, can you believe that people used to just actually touch each other and hang onto their hands and drink out of each other's cups backstage and use each other's makeup? And what do you think, what kind of effect is that going to have on your workplace going forward?
I don't know. And that's a great question. I mean, The Social, like we perform or we do the show typically in front of a live audience. So I'm thinking that the live audience component won't come back initially. I can say, and I do want to say, and you probably heard this from the others, is that our live audience, and you would know this because you perform in front of live audiences all the time, Jann, they give us that energy. It's impossible not to want to go out there and kill it and fly. I call it flying and take flight when you're in front of a live audience. They are the extra ingredient. They're the magic, the extra magic, the secret sauce that makes the social work. So I certainly hope eventually that the live audience will come back. And as for physical distance from people and our rituals behind the scenes and our own personal rituals with Kwame, we each have our own, like Kwame has a group ritual with all of us, and then each of us have our own individual rituals with him. I certainly don't want that to go away. And I want to do everything I can to make sure that it happens still. And you know me, Jan, I'm not a touchy-feely person. I actually am uncomfortable with physical contact. I'm not a hugger. But I am someone who loves rituals. I love traditions. I love marking something with a phrase or a common move that we all do. And I never want that. I never want that to go away. And I can't wait to make it happen again.
It's absolutely not going to go away. I think time is so wise. And I don't think we've ever been more aware of counting days, counting hours, because every morning that I wake up, I'm like, we're one step closer to it. And we are, and we're seeing that. I keep thinking back to the millions of people that were affected in 1918 by this. They were also involved in a world war. So you can imagine it was already very difficult to find food and to keep your family in just your basic necessities. And then add on to that, near the end of the First World War, now you have the Spanish flu that comes online. And so we've had it relatively easy. Do you think we are as resilient and as tough and as steadfast as the people were 100 years ago? Or do you think we have failed in that department? Do you think people are whining and complaining too much about having to simply stay home?
I think that I know that I'm not as resilient as the people from 100 years ago.
Like your mom, for instance.
I know that I'm not as resilient as my mother. I'm certainly not as resilient as the people even 30 years ago. Definitely me personally, I'm not as resilient as the people who dealt with the Spanish flu in 1918. I do believe that there's certain people today in 2020 who are as resilient, and they will be the ones to save us all. But and it's not me being self-deprecating. I know I don't have it. I have certain strengths, and my strengths are not getting through something like this without a lot of pain and some complaining. And there are some days when I don't feel, some days when I feel better than others, and some days when I'm just like, I am not, I don't have it. And if aliens come or if another pandemic comes, I'm going to go first. I know it. I might as well just volunteer.
The last minute of this segment, how are you and Jacek getting along? Jacek and you have been together, 10 plus years now?
We are going to be celebrating our 19th wedding anniversary in November. And we have been together 20 years. Thank you.
And how is it going?
It's, as I just said to you, I am not resilient, and he is. Like, he is one of the people who can survive. So he's basically the life force in our house. He's holding it together. Before we went on this podcast, he just finished cleaning the house, and he's the one who, he's the one who's keeping us alive.
Is he the forester? Is he the guy going to get the groceries?
We're ordering groceries right now, so he's not getting the groceries. But he's the one who, this garage, and magic things happen in this garage. Things are fixed. Things are made miraculously. Our backyard has become a driving range, a golf course driving range. So he can do anything. So if I survive, it's because of him.
You're listening to the Jann Arden Podcast. My guest is the amazing Elaine Lui, Lainey Gossip. If we want to go there, I want to keep branding that, because people need to go check out that website. Speaking of celebrities, and I know we weren't before, a lot of people I think, are making complete fools of themselves during COVID-19. I just, not to name names, but Gal Gadot, very early on, Gal Gadot, am I saying that right? Gal
Gadot. Yeah.
Gal Gadot. Okay. Wonder Woman. She did the Imagine thing with all her famous friends. And maybe I'm being a real a-hole right now, but it was so bizarre. It wasn't even it wasn't even in a key. It was like, and I wasn't sure what the purpose was. It didn't raise money for anything. It was early days.
Yeah.
Tell me thoughts on that. And was it just to say, this is how many famous people I know?
Well, you weren't alone. So if you are an a-hole, then there are lots of a-holes who felt the same way. And even like the New York Times wrote about how it was tone deaf, not to like bludgeon a pun or anything. And that it was at best earnest, and at worst it was like, why,
That's the question.
Right. So I also felt the same way you did. I was like, I don't know if this is meant to provide comfort to people. I don't know if it's landing. And I don't want to say that their intentions were like nefarious, because it wasn't. It came from a good place. It's just, and this is the thing about celebrity that I'm so fascinated with, is that what happens is that so often they live in this bubble and the real world can't penetrate it. So the feedback that they get, and this is true of all people, just with celebrities, it's the spotlight is that much bigger, right?
Agreed.
We all have our own bubbles. So it's not just celebrities, but when it comes to celebrities, their bubble is so magnified that we get to see just how often they aren't told no, or they're not told, hey, maybe that's not the best option for you, or hey, maybe you should rethink this. And I think that that's what happened, is that they just talked to each other and their publicists and whatever, I don't know who, and they didn't bounce it off of somebody who might be outside of the bubble to see how it would be received.
So there's this phenomenon going on with Instagram. So back in the day, 2 months ago, way back when, 8 weeks ago, you'd go on Instagram and occasionally there would be the live bubble that someone was doing a live Instagram. They were usually kind of banal, not super interesting. Now you can go on in the evening, anytime from like 4 p.m. Eastern till like 9. There is on my feed sometimes 10 or 12 live Instagrams going, and it is celebrities talking to other celebrities, doing these live things. Some vary from 40 listeners to Lizzo had, I went and looked at hers, and there was 475,000 people watching her and this rapper. And she was basically, it was just her butt, which was great, but she just was shaking it in the camera. It made no sense to me. Tell me, what thoughts on this?
Well, okay, so with respect to Lizzo, the reason why she was doing that is because she previously had been on P. Diddy's Instagram Live, and it was a dance party, and that was to raise money. And there was controversy because she was doing her thing, and she is a beautiful woman with curves.
Yes, voluptuous, all the...
Yes, and Diddy shut it down. And he didn't shut down women who were dancing in the same fashion, who had different body types, as in body types that may be more traditionally on magazine covers considered beautiful.
Okay.
And so there was a lot of controversy with people accusing Diddy of body shaming Lizzo and shutting down a woman, and particularly a Black woman's right to be beautiful in her own power and in her own shape. So when she went on the subsequent Instagram Live, what she was doing was flaunting her curves and her beauty and her power and not being ashamed of it. And it was for her like a moment of empowerment. So that's the backstory there. Are there other celebrities who are just doing that kind of thing just because?
Well, not even so much, not even so much the twerking, but and also I desperately want your opinion on what is the idea of, like, when I'm looking at some of these people, Diddy in particular, some other rappers, some other celebrities, social distancing, there's 12 or 15 people in the room, Lainey.
Yeah.
Like, what are they all living in the high rise together and they've been quarantined together? And so many people have spoken to that. Like, how is this working? And are they all just leaving the apartment at night? Like, or a social distancing that they don't even give a crap?
Well, and I think that that's what's being pointed out and called out where celebrities are concerned, right? Kim Kardashian admitted on The Tonight Show that she snuck out of her place to go get her makeup done at her sister's so that she could do an appearance on The Tonight Show. And you're like, but wait a minute, you have your own makeup line. Are you telling me that you couldn't have done your own makeup and you had to go to your sister's, Kylie's, because Kylie does your makeup better? Like, that is, we're none of us are supposed to be doing that. I'm not supposed to be visiting my parents. There are people who aren't supposed to be visiting their siblings. And so why do you get to sort of break the rules? And yeah, there have been lots of paparazzi photos. You mentioned Gal Gadot. It was her birthday like recently, and her friends came over and the paparazzi had photos of her hugging her friends outside the house. And it's like, okay, that's not great either. And then, you know, so you're talking, so all these examples from all kinds of celebrities, from all kinds of different backgrounds and industries have, you know, been busted, if you will. And I think it goes back to what we're just talking about, that sense of privilege and that bubble where, of course, they have the resources to, first of all, probably exist during this time of lockdown in a more comfortable way than others. And then they also have the privilege of not having to worry about consequences of COVID-19. Because we have seen that COVID-19 obviously affects those in different economic socio groups like worse. And so even if you do get infected, if you are a celebrity and you have access to doctors and all kinds of resources, the chances are that you may get better care than others, right? So there's all those layers of that. And then Madonna, oh my God, like
yeah. I was going to ask you about her, but I mean, there's the infamous bathtub broadcast when no one was really sure of the messaging, but celebrities are certainly using this as a platform. And like Sharon Stone comes to mind. I have been following her on Instagram, and she seems quite uniquely peculiar to me in kind of a lovely way. I don't know if you've seen any of her stuff. She does a lot of medical updates and tells people how to breathe. And I don't know. I've seen a side of celebrity on this Lainey that I've never seen before. On a positive note, I can't say enough good things about Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
I've seen a side of him, like he was always nutty and wonderful and terribly handsome and super talented and funny, but there's an earnestness that has come to the forefront of what he's done. So super Canadian, what he's done for equipment, masks, gowns, face shields, the way he's rallied the t-shirts, you know, the fighting COVID-19.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm so impressed with him and the actual positive use of a celebrity. Ryan Reynolds gets a gold star from me.
I agree. Like, just for as many of the ones who have screwed up or at least haven't done it well, there are so many examples of ones who have. You just mentioned Ryan Reynolds. Rihanna is another one.
Really great.
One of the first celebrities, right, to say, hey, I'm pulling up, and $5 million of a donation internationally. Then she also helped with PPE with New York City, and then another $1 million in Los Angeles for victims of domestic violence, because we know that when you're staying at home all the time, the risk and increase of domestic violence goes up. So she's at minimum so far donated around $6 or $7 million, but at the same time can still go on Instagram and do the dance thing and entertain people for throwing an Instagram party. That's a great balance.
Once again, she's there with 19 people in a room. So we're all looking at it going, okay, there's different social, but no, I get it. She has been very entertaining, but we're seeing like celebrities in an unprecedented way with like their roots coming in, their unibrow growing in. There's just been, you know, so many, it's actually kind of charming because they're not getting their makeup done professionally by like Kim Kardashian's sister. So I think it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz. We're getting to look behind the curtain a little bit, Lainey.
We are. And it's still curated, of course, because these are celebrities and they think they're showing a certain side of themselves. But yeah, especially in those candid moments, we are there. The curtain is being pulled back a little bit, but also what it's exposing is the very basic common denominator among celebrities. And it is this thing. It is their need for attention. You know, for all the prior to COVID-19, the leave us alone, we want to have a private life, this is personal. All of a sudden, we put them in lockdown and they're like, here, look at my house, look at my kids, look at this, look at that, look at that. And you're like, oh, wait, what happened to you wanting to be private? Like, you'd think that during the lockdown is the time for you to be like, yeah, let me just disappear. Peace out. Thank God I don't have to be in front of a camera and the spotlight's not on me. But it seems like they're like more out there than ever, which is, I think, so funny and so entertaining.
So contrary to the messaging we get of, please, no, get that camera out of my face. They're in charge of their own cameras. But it's been a great time. And you know, a lot of this stuff is permanent because it's on the internet. If you don't save your Instagram story, no, all the Instagram stuff disappears, doesn't it?
It does. I'm sure it exists somewhere.
Well, anyway, it's been so great. I'm sadly out of friggin' time. So that's how fast it goes. I feel like I've talked to you for 30 seconds and there's so many people I wanted to ask you out, but we ask you about. Did I just say ask you out? That was Freudian.
That works too.
Wow.
That works too.
Lainey, thank you so much for hanging out with us, and hopefully we'll get through this soon, and we'll talk to you soon. And I know you're not a hugger, but I might just hug you anyway, like a light, very quick hug when we're allowed to. Is that fair?
You're always my light.
Okay. We've been talking to Lainey Lui, and you've been listening to the Jann Arden Podcast. Thanks, Adam, for everything. We'll see you guys soon. Toodly-doo.